If you clicked on this video, you probably want to learn how to annotate, whether that is because you never know how to start, don't know what to annotate, or don't know what's important. I'm going to show you how to annotate scholarly. And I'd like to preface this by saying that you can annotate whatever way you think best fits your learning style. This video is simply for anyone who likes to dive into books similar to me or would like to try a different approach of annotation. For reference, this is how I annotate. So for starters, introduction. A lot of people tend to skip out on the introduction of books, and that's perfectly fine if you feel as though you don't need help on how to navigate through a book and prefer to go in completely new. Introductions basically give you information about the author of the book, like why they wrote the book, the central thesis or problem, and tell you what to expect throughout the reading, which in most cases includes spoilers. My take on spoilers is just because you know what's going to happen doesn't mean you can't have fun while reading, and it's kind of like reading the book twice without actually reading it. Since you know what to expect, when you come across that spoiler in the book, you can look for deeper meanings rather than fresh eyes reading it the first time and not knowing what's worth remembering and what's not. Knowing what to expect helps a lot when it comes to tabs. If you read the introduction and know what to expect, you can get a good sense of what to keep track of in your book. For example, in Siddhartha, in its introduction, it explains how our protagonist, Siddhartha, goes through various different adventures, all while learning new religions. So already, it would make the most sense to keep tabs on different religions Siddhartha approaches or practices, which can easily be done by putting a sticky note inside of your book with, quote, different religions written, plus the color of tab you wanted to represent. Still using Siddhartha as an example, since the introduction gives us information about the author, Hermann Hesse, we can develop our understanding of the main idea of the book. For instance, Hesse began writing the book in 1919, shortly after the end of World War I, and published it at the peak of Germany's devastating inflation, which is super important because, as stated on the first page of the introduction, the novel reflects the yearning for meaning in the outside world and within oneself as a response to the aftermath of the war. Most simply, the introduction is telling you that in the novel there will be ideas of curiosity about the world and curiosity about one's inner self, like the mind and how it works. So what do you do with this information? You keep tabs of exactly that. Anyone who you come across in the book who has curiosity about the world and how it works and its beliefs, keep tabs on it. Anyone who you come across in the book who yearns to know more about themselves, again, keep tabs on it. Along with tabs, I encourage you to write in your books. Writing in your books equals engagement. Many people don't like to write in their books, which is completely understandable if you feel like you're ruining the book. In my opinion, that's just the aftermath of the book's impact on you. I like to doodle small things such as a star next to a sentence I think stands out, and it's up to you if you'd like to mark that with a tab or a star or whatever way you choose for it to stand out to you. I also like to draw little faces next to sentences or paragraphs when I feel an emotion worth remembering. And I know it's worth remembering when my actual body has a reaction, like if I feel sad enough to frown or if I laugh. I also write down questions I have, even if they don't get answered at all or right away throughout my read. Now, if you have a school-owned book, it's probably not the best idea to mark it all up, but it depends on your teacher, so always ask. But if it's your own book, then it's completely up to you. When I write on a page of a book and move on from it, if I ever have to go back and find something, I always remember the page, or at least somewhere close to where it was, because of the drawing I made on the page. Words you don't know. When you come across a word you don't know, I found the best way to memorize the word is to write down this definition pen to paper. It goes way further than just searching up what it means and going on with your reading, unless you have a good memory, which I won't argue with. Even when I write it down pen to paper, I sometimes forget, but it's really good practice. Regardless, I like to keep a small book filled with definitions of words I don't know. It'll especially come in handy if you find the word in an essay you might have to do on your book. It doesn't have to be complicated. Simply writing it down on any piece of paper and reviewing it if you come across it again will definitely help your memorization. I just prefer to keep it in a small notebook for easy access, and just because it's nice to have your own personal dictionary with words you came across while reading. Another useful method to do while reading is paraphrasing sentences you don't really understand. For example, Hesse sought to redirect attention from mourning for the lost war and anger at the national condition in defeat to focus on one's self. This sentence can easily discourage anyone and can even have you reread it a couple times. So it's best to paraphrase, aka break it down into simpler terms. So right next to that sentence, you can write, Hesse encouraged everyone to, instead of being angry and sad after the war, to look inwards and focus on themselves to heal. Books without an introduction. There are a ton of books without introductions. Some books might just have a short prologue. Prologues work similarly to introductions, minus the background knowledge of the author, but we're talking about a book with nothing, ones that jump right into the story, or maybe you just don't want to read the introduction. Books like these, I like to think of myself as my own teacher, especially if it's a book I'm reading for pleasure. I have to trust myself. So as I read, whenever I think something is important to the plot, I'll put a tab and just mark it as, quote, important on that sticky note inside the cover. In most cases, you should know what the plot is about, like The Hunger Games, for instance. You know its main ideas and stuff like dystopian themes, revenge, love, games, and so on. So those are pretty easy to find and put tabs on, but things such as dreams the protagonist Katniss in The Hunger Games has, some people might not pick up on its importance and just skip by thinking it's just a normal occurrence. But its repetition throughout the book suggests it's not only important, but it's symbolic, as all dreams tend to be. With that being said, an important note to keep in mind when reading is something you've probably heard 100 times throughout your English classes. Reading clues. 1. Author/character repeats a word, phrase, object, or situation. When an author repeats situations or ideas, they are usually symbols that mean something much greater. Everything in your book is intentional. 2. When a character suddenly realizes, understands, or finally figures something out, shows that a character has grown or the plot is about to change. 3. When a character does something that is the opposite of what you expect, like contradicting behavior, usually suggests that there's deeper feelings and a change will occur. 4. When a character asks themselves a hard question, what am I going to do now? Highlights the main conflict of the story. 5. When an old wise character gives the main character advice, could be the main lesson or moral of the story. 6. Character remembers/shares a memory. Important because it is being resurfaced twice, can share deeper information. These are the kind of methods of learning that never get old and can apply to all books and help you annotate when you're on your own with no introduction and no prior knowledge of your book. I'll be putting a link to the sticky note tabs I use in the description box if anyone's interested.